Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're back, picking up right where we left off on our multi-part journey into human connection, really digging deeper into attachment theory.
Indeed, and you might remember in our previous discussions, we really laid the groundwork with John Bowlby's foundational ideas, how attachment is this deep-seated evolutionary thing for survival. It's the why we seek closeness.
Yeah, the fundamental drive. And then Mary Ainsworth's brilliant strange situation procedure came along. That was that really clever experiment that showed us how those early attachment patterns in infants actually looked. You had secure, avoidant, resistant.
Right, and later they added disorganized. And a really crucial concept we touched on, the one that bridges infancy to adulthood, was internal working models, or IWMs.
Ah, yes, the IWM.
Think of them as those mental blueprints sort of formed from our very first interactions that shape all our expectations about ourselves and about others in relationships.
Those IWMs are just absolutely central to everything, aren't they?
Hmm.
So our mission today is, well, to take that journey further. We're extending attachment theory beyond infancy, right into adult relationships.
Exactly.
We're going to dive into a really insightful cross-sectional study. It's titled Exploring the Association Between Attachment Style, Psychological Well-Being, and Relationship Status in Young Adults and Adults.
And this deep dive should really illuminate how those foundational attachment experiences, the ones carried forward through those powerful internal working models, continue to influence your adult life, your sense of well-being, and, the very nature of your closest connections.
Okay, let's unpack this study's core idea then. What's its central premise? What's it really trying to say?
Well, at its heart, the study argues that your closest relationships, your attachment, they profoundly shape the kind of connections you make as an adult. And these relationships, in turn, have this huge impact on your overall happiness, your psychological well-being, your mental health. It's a direct line, you see, from our earliest bonds to how we thrive, or maybe struggle, later on.
And this connects right back to Bowlby's fundamental insight, doesn't it? That whole idea of attachment providing a secure base.
Hmm.
We talked about how he observed those delinquent boys struggling to form bonds and how we all have this sort of internal radar constantly checking, is my person nearby? Do I feel safe?
Exactly. Whether you're an infant or an adult, attachment functions as that secure base. It's what allows for emotional exploration, giving you the confidence to venture out, face challenges, knowing you have a safe haven to return to, a place where you can manage distress, difficult situations.
So it's not just about baby cries and parents anymore. This is really about how those early patterns translate into our grown-up relationships, our friends, partners.
Even colleagues sometimes. It truly follows us through life. Precisely. Attachment theory, which, started focusing strictly on the parent-child bond, has been extensively applied to adult relationships. We now understand those early experiences continue shaping our internal working models throughout our entire lives, impacting how we interact in all our close connections.
Now, when we talk about adult attachment, how do researchers actually measure it? Because, it's not like they're putting adults in a strange situation lab, right?
No, not quite. That's a great question. Researchers adapted Bowlby and Ainsworth's work. Initially, they identified prototypes or categories quite similar to the infant styles. You were sort of pigeonholed as secure, avoidant, or anxious, ambivalent.
Like boxes.
Yeah, exactly. But then an important shift occurred. We moved from those strict categorical models where you're just one type to dimensional models.
Dimensional, meaning it's less like an on-off switch and more like sliders on a mixing board. You score on a spectrum of traits.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Think of it like a sound equalizer. Instead of just loud or quiet, you dial up or down different frequencies. It gives a much richer, more nuanced picture of how someone approaches relationships.
Okay.
And this specific study we're diving into used this dimensional approach. They used something called the Attachment Style Questionnaire, or ASQ.
Okay, the ASQ. So what are these dimensions, these sliders it measures?
The ASQ characterizes adult attachment across 5 specific dimensions. First, we have confidence. This reflects a positive view of both yourself and others in relationships. It's about your ability to trust, to expect good outcomes when you connect with people.
Right, sounds like a pretty solid foundation for, healthy relationships. What's next?
Then there's discomfort with closeness. This measures a reluctance to trust or depend on others, and a general kind of unease with intimacy. It's that feeling of needing to pull back when things get too close for comfort.
That definitely sounds like a key piece of what we traditionally call an avoidance style, doesn't it?
Very much so, yes. The third dimension is relationships as secondary. Now, this isn't about being antisocial or anything, but maybe you're someone who genuinely finds more fulfillment or focus in, say, your career or personal goals, hobbies, and close relationships just naturally take a bit of a back seat.
So they're not the main priority, just one part of a bigger life picture.
That's right. The fourth dimension is need for approval. This reflects a strong desire for validation from others and often a palpable fear of rejection. It's that constant internal question buzzing around. Do they like me? Am I okay? Am I good enough?
That sounds draining. And the last one.
Finally, preoccupation with relationships. This characterizes an excessive concern about relationships, often accompanied by a fear of abandonment or, being unwanted. It's almost like a constant rumination going over and over the state of your connections.
Okay, so if we think about those traditional styles, secure, avoidant, anxious, how do they map onto these 5 ASQ dimensions? How do they dial in on that equalizer you mentioned?
Here. Well, someone who's generally secure would typically score very high on confidence, reflecting that positive self-view and trust in others.
Makes sense.
And then they'd score low on the other 4 dimensions. Minimal discomfort with closeness. They don't really see relationships as secondary. They have a low need for approval and low preoccupation with relationships.
Right. Confident, not too worried about rejection or needing constant validation. Seems straightforward.
Exactly. Now, avoidant individuals, on the other hand, they'd score high on discomfort with closeness, and often pretty high on relationships as secondary, too. That reflects their tendency to withdraw and really prioritize independence.
Okay. And anxious individuals, how would they look on this dimensional map?
Anxious individuals would typically score high on need for approval and high on preoccupation with relationships. That shows that intense concern about validation, that fear of abandonment we talked about.
Gotcha.
So these dimensions really break down the components of those broader styles, giving us a much clearer, more granular picture of how someone actually expresses their attachment patterns.
That's fascinating. So, okay, we've got how adult attachment is measured dimensionally. The other big piece of this study is psychological well-being, PWB. How is that defined and measured here?
Right. PWB. Psychological well-being isn't just, not being depressed or feeling okay. It's actually a really rich, multi-layered concept. This study used Reif's psychological well-being scales to explore 6 different facets of what it means to truly thrive psychologically.
Reef scales. Yeah, they capture a pretty holistic view, don't they? What are the 6?
They really do. First is autonomy, which is about your independence, your ability to be self-directed. Second, environmental mastery. That's your ability to manage your life and the world around you effectively, like feeling capable.
Feeling you can handle stuff, okay?
Third is personal growth. That sense of continued development, being open to new experiences, always sort of learning and evolving.
Always learning, always evolving. Yeah, that feels key.
Absolutely. Fourth, positive relations with others, which is pretty self-explanatory, having warm, trusting, satisfying connections. Fifth, purpose in life, having goals, a sense of direction, feeling like your life has meaning. And finally, 6th is self-acceptance, which is simply having a positive attitude towards yourself, flaws and all.
Wow. Yeah, that's a truly comprehensive view of what it means to be doing well psychologically. So before we dive into this study's specific findings, what's the general consensus? What are the established links between attachment and psychological well-being usually found?
Well, broadly speaking, the literature consistently shows that secure attachment is strongly associated with higher psychological well-being across the board.
Okay.
And on the flip side, anxious and avoidant attachment styles are just as consistently negatively associated with psychological well-being. This study was really aiming to put some more specific empirical data behind those established links, especially using these dimensional measures.
All right, let's get into the juicy part then. The key hypotheses and what the study actually found. What was their first big question? Hypothesis 1.
It was about PWB and relationship status, right?
That's right. H1 hypothesized that individuals who are in stable, close relationships would score higher in psychological well-being compared to single adults. It's a question, a lot of people might feel they know the answer to intuitively, but it's crucial to test it scientifically.
Was that hunch supported by the data?
Yes, it was strongly supported. The study found a statistically significant difference. People in stable, close relationships reported noticeably higher levels of psychological well-being compared to single individuals.
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't just a tiny bump. The data clearly showed a meaningful difference in overall happiness and psychological thriving. The mean PWB score was about 79.4 for those in relationships versus 77.4 for singles. Okay, so being in a stable, close relationship is linked to a higher sense of overall well-being. That might sound obvious to some, but this study actually put numbers to it.
Hmm.
What about H2? That looked at attachment styles and relationship status, right? Did they find a connection there?
Hypothesis 2 proposed that individuals in stable, close relationships would show an attachment pattern linked more strongly to confidence compared to single individuals.
And the findings for that one supported.
It was, yes, though maybe slightly nuanced. While the confidence scores themselves weren't hugely different on average between the groups and the raw numbers presented, the overall pattern supported it. More clearly, single individuals, particularly the younger adults in the sample, scored significantly higher in those dimensions reflecting insecurity.
Ah, okay. Which ones specifically?
Namely, discomfort with closeness, preoccupation with relationships, and need for approval. Singles scored higher on all three compared to those in stable relationships.
So if you're single, you're more likely, on average, to feel that discomfort getting close, be preoccupied with relationships, or have a higher need for that external validation. That's really telling.
It is, and the analysis went further, using logistic regression, which basically predicts the odds of something happening. It confirmed a very strong link. The less discomfort you feel with closeness and the less preoccupied you are with relationships, the significantly higher your odds were of being in a stable relationship.
Wow.
Yeah, specifically, for every 1 unit increase in discomfort with closeness, the odds of having a stable relationship actually decreased by about 5%. It really highlights how important these specific dimensions are for forming and maintaining connections.
That's a pretty powerful finding, reinforcing how those insecurities can genuinely act as barriers to stable connections. Okay, now for H3. How did those specific attachment dimensions relate directly to psychological well-being itself?
Right, H3 hypothesized that the more individuals displayed an attachment style linked to confidence, so high confidence, low others, the higher they would score in psychological well-being. And conversely, if they displayed traits like discomfort with closeness, need for approval, preoccupation, or relationships as secondary, their well-being would likely be lower.
And the findings. Was this prediction borne out by the data?
This hypothesis was strongly supported right across the board, actually. It held true for both single individuals and those in stable relationships.
Interesting. So tell me about the singles first.
Okay, so for single individuals, higher confidence positively predicted psychological well-being made them feel better overall, but need for approval and seeing relationships as secondary both negatively predicted PWB.
So even when you're single, needing that validation or maybe deprioritizing relationships is linked to lower well-being.
Exactly. It suggests that even when you're not in a partnership, these underlying attachment patterns still play a really crucial role in how good you feel psychologically.
And what about for those in stable relationships? Did the same patterns hold true?
Very similarly, yes. For individuals in stable, close relationships, confidence also positively predicted PWB. And, just like with the singles, discomfort with closeness, relationships as secondary, and need for approval all negatively predicted psychological well-being.
So it's a really clear and consistent pattern then. Secure attachment dimensions seem to boost well-being, while those insecure dimensions consistently drag it down, regardless of whether you're single or partnered.
Precisely. That's the overarching finding. Secure attachment, characterized by higher confidence and lower scores on those other four dimensions, consistently and powerfully predicted higher psychological well-being.
Right.
And in stark contrast, the anxious dimensions, reflected in higher need for approval and preoccupation, and the avoidant dimensions, like discomfort with closeness and relationships as secondary, they consistently and negatively predicted psychological well-being. It's a very clear picture from this study.
Okay, so bringing it all together, what does this all mean for us, for the listeners? What are the big implications of this study that we should really take away?
Well, first, I think the study's results powerfully reinforce something many might sense, but it's good to see the data. Stable romantic relationships and secure attachment are profoundly important for psychological well-being. It's not just, a nice to have. The data suggests it's pretty central to thriving emotionally and psychologically.
And it really brings those internal working models back to the forefront again, doesn't it? Those sort of invisible blueprints we carry around.
It absolutely does. These findings really underscore the continued relevance of those internal working models in our adult relational and emotional experiences. They demonstrate that those blueprints we started building way back in infancy continue to exert this long-term impact on how we form connections, how we experience intimacy, and ultimately how we feel about ourselves and our lives.
And for people working in therapy or maybe trying to help others with their relationships or even just trying to understand themselves better.
Yeah, I think this research really highlights the importance of these associations for informing therapeutic and relational interventions. Understanding an individual's attachment style, especially through these dimensions, can provide a really powerful lens.
How so?
Well, it helps therapists, or even individuals, understand why certain patterns keep showing up, and it can help improve overall well-being and the quality of relationships. It offers clear targets for intervention. It suggests that actively working on those insecure patterns, like reducing discomfort with closeness or managing the need for approval, isn't just some vague self-help idea. According to this research, it looks like a measurable pathway to a better life.
So we've just completed a deep dive into how adult attachment styles, particularly when you look at them dimensionally, are really closely linked to psychological well-being and relationship status. We've pulled specific hard-hitting insights from this recent cross-sectional study.
Yeah, and it truly brings us full circle, doesn't it? From Bowlby's initial observations of those early bonds, all the way to seeing how those very same foundational patterns carried through our internal working models continue to profoundly shape our adult lives, our closest connections, our happiness.
It's incredible to see that trajectory laid out. And it leaves us with a thought, doesn't it? Considering the profound impact these internal working models have on our adult lives, how might understanding your own default settings
Yeah.
for relationships, those patterns of confidence or maybe discomfort with closeness or that need for approval, how might understanding those empower you to navigate your connections more consciously and ultimately maybe enhance your own well-being?
It's definitely powerful stuff to reflect on, and we are certainly not done exploring this. Join us next time as we delve into the fascinating topic of the intergenerational transmission of attachment, evidence, and mechanisms, how these patterns might even pass down through families.
Looking forward to it.